Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Anti-Doping Podcast, brought to you by the Partnership for Clean Competition. I'm your host, Dr. Marie McNeely, and today we're joined by our guest, Chaya Ndiaye, and Chaya is the head of product at the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA. And in this episode, we are going to do a deep dive into WADA's Anti-Doping Administration Management System, also known as ADAMS, talking about what it is, how it's used, and how it's changed and continues to evolve over time to meet the needs of its users. So, Chaya, we're so excited to welcome you to the show today. How are you?
I'm good, Marie. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm so excited to learn more from you today. So can you start by telling us more about yourself and your role there at WADA?
Well, I've been at WADA since 2005, although it was supposed to be just for a 2-day replacement. Mm-hmm. And today, as the head of product within the IT department, I oversee and coordinate the organization product catalog roadmaps and ensure that they are aligned with WADA's strategic objectives.
Fantastic. So how did you get interested in anti-doping and maybe find your way to this initial 2-day replacement position there at WADA?
Well, really, I just got a call, as I was saying, for a 2-day replacement in the HR department back in end of 2004, beginning of 2005. And growing up, sport has always been a big part of my life. So I'm a true believer that sport can really be a vessel for social change. So WADA values integrity, openness, equity really resonate with me. So I've never left.
Oh, phenomenal. And you've worked through a couple of different positions there at WADA, making your way to this head of product position. Can you briefly touch on how you got to this particular position and your path through WADA?
I would say after 2 years in HR during my master, I was offered the position in the IT department as an IT coordinator. ADAMS was already launched, but I took the ball from there and went from a coordinator to an analyst to a manager, and here I am.
Fantastic. So let's dive into the details then. What is the Anti-Doping Administration Management System, or ADAMS, and what is its purpose?
So ADAMS' main objective is to ensure that the data on anti-doping activities worldwide is consolidated so that testing and related activities are well coordinated. It also allows us, WADA, to monitor the activities and harmonize the reporting of information and provision of information by the athletes. The system is secure. It is made available for free to all the WADA stakeholders, and it's also available in 27 languages. Since the launch back in 2005, we now have 2 additional applications, which are Athlete Central and DCO Central.
Fantastic. And then is this just sort of like a web platform that your users can interact with and log into from anywhere in the world?
We have both. We really have the web platform, which we will dive into a bit later, and the 2 applications that are iOS and Android compatible are available to the athletes for their whereabouts submissions. And the second one, DCO Central, is our paperless sample collection application.
Fantastic. So what kinds of information does ADAMS actually contain?
The system really covers the full anti-doping activities. It has the whereabouts module, which helps the athletes who are required to submit their whereabouts comply with the rules of their sport by entering their information from anywhere in the web. As we were saying, it is both web and an app, so to be kept on their phone for whereabouts submissions on the go. It also supports the delegation of responsibilities. So if I am an athlete that needs to submit my whereabouts information, I can defer to an agent or to a team manager to do so. The whereabouts information is automatically made available to the relevant anti-doping organizations in order to support an effective out-of-competition testing program. The second module would be the therapeutic use exemption, which is secure, managed securely and online, and allows the athlete to submit exemption requests to their anti-doping organizations to participate in different events in order to take prohibited substances. The test planning and results management module provides anti-doping organizations with an essential tool for managing the doping control program. The coordination of the doping control programs in ADAMS helps to avoid the duplication of testing efforts and harmonizes communications between testing authorities, sample collection agencies, as well as WADA-accredited laboratories for the athlete biological passport. As I touched upon just in the previous question, we also have Athlete Central, which is available to athletes for whereabouts submissions and modifications on the go on both iOS and Android. while DCO Central, the paperless doping control app, is available to doping control officers to collect samples and have automatic access to the whereabouts information that are in ADAMS.
Definitely. And you touched on this a little bit in your previous response, but it sounds like a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different people use ADAMS. So can you tell us what each group uses it for?
So we really have the full, I would say, anti-doping community using the system. Currently, we have about 36,000 active users.
Oh, wow.
Out of which 31,000 are athletes. So athletes and their support personnel, which are agents and doctors, would use ADAMS and the apps to submit whereabouts or request therapeutic use exemptions, while the anti-doping organizations and their dedicated third parties would coordinate and manage the athletes within their jurisdiction, as well as their whereabouts. They would also manage their therapeutic use exemptions, the test planning and sample collection, results management, as well as athlete biological passport. So we do really have a wide variety of users, I would say.
Definitely. And to dig into the athletes a little bit here, you mentioned the bulk of the users for ADAMS. How is that distributed across maybe sports and countries? And what does that user base look like?
So 31,000 athletes would be athletes in the anti-doping organization's registered testing pool or testing pool that would have to submit whereabouts in order to make themselves available for out-of-competition testing and for the anti-doping organizations to run their anti-doping program. So those would be our major base.
Excellent. And then for people who might not be familiar with who is in this registered testing pool, do you represent different levels of sport? Do you represent different sports, different countries? What does that look like, if you can comment on that?
We do have national level athletes using ADAMS as well as international level athletes. So I would say that the user base is really worldwide because any athlete in an international sport could be based in any of the countries and would still have to log into ADAMS to submit their information.
Very interesting. So when you think about ADAMS, you mentioned there are a lot of different users, but this is also something that must be kept really secure. So what is the process that an organization or an individual must follow to be able to access ADAMS?
The system is available to all and any WADA stakeholder as long as they have signed the code. We do have a set of agreements and legal documents, sure enough, that need to be signed ahead of time. But we do provide training sessions, onboarding sessions to each one of the organizations. We also have a support that is available 5 days a week and reachable. If we're touching upon the security aspect, I would say that a big portion of the IT budget is spent on the infrastructure of security. And on the side also within the ADAMS ecosystem, as we call it, which is ADAMS Web and its app, we do offer a set of security features, which are the two-factor authentication, complex passwords. We send notification to the users when there are some atypical activities, which are suddenly a user is logging in from a new country, just to validate that it is indeed legit. We have a very extensive traceability and audit trail, as well as granular permissions management. Besides that, the whole environment, I would say all the WADA products go through a yearly vulnerability test. And we do provide extensive education to our end users, being WADA users or external ones. We do provide some documentation as well.
Excellent. I'd love to learn a little bit more about this education and training because I think that's so important. Oftentimes people provide a tool, but they don't really tell people how to use it and how to use it best to benefit them and to make their lives easier. So I think that's so great that you guys provide this training. What does that training look like?
I would say that each anti-doping organization has its own set of procedures. So we have to create tailor-made trainings for each one of them. It will start with a 2-hour remote training session where we get to know the users, understand their processes, and propose the best approach to implement the system if they have not started using it yet. We also, thanks to COVID, there are quite some extensive tools for video conferencing. So we are able to communicate directly with the users, share their screen, and explain in detail what they are seeing and why. That it is really the type of approach that is provided.
Fantastic. So I'd love to learn a little bit about the history as well. Chaya, can you tell us a little bit more about how ADAMS got started in the first place?
So the system has been created at first based on the need that WADA needed to provide a tool for anti-doping organizations to coordinate anti-doping activities and provide a tool to also assist the stakeholders in their implementation of the code. So the first version was released in November 2005. Since then, we have released, as I was saying, 2 additional apps, one Athlete Central and then the one for the doping control officers. It has become pretty complex, I have to admit. The demand on ADAMS is more demanding, and we're doing our best to really adapt to the needs of all the stakeholders, although understanding that we cannot meet every single one of them, but trying to find the common denominators and adapting to the ever-changing anti-doping technology landscape.
Absolutely. And I think these are 2 major points that you just brought up there, kind of the dynamic aspect of anti-doping in general, but also just all of the major changes that have been in technology and how people use technology since 2005. So Chaya, can you tell us a little bit more about some of these big changes that the ADAMS system has undergone over time?
Our main changes, I would say, have to do with the technical stack. As well, we can say that 2005 was a long time ago, especially when we speak IT. So we've just undergone a very big technical stack uplift, which allowed us to improve the system performance and guarantee a 99.7% of system availability. We have also very recently just made a shift from the usual coding system to a low-code platform in order to deliver new features known as the next-gen ADAMS modules faster. We are also in the understanding that we cannot meet the requirements of all of the stakeholders that we do have. We are working on an application platform interface, which will allow the stakeholders with their own system to upload information directly into ADAMS without manual work, which will help us reduce the manual data entry, therefore reducing the errors. So the first module for the application platform interface, the API, would be the doping control forms. I would say also we have to be careful to not become a technology shop, I would say. So ADAMS really needs to be the core database for anti-doping worldwide, but we do not want to stop the innovation by the other anti-doping organizations. So it's a big shift for us to start opening the platform to application platform interface.
Definitely. And you mentioned a term, next-gen ADAMS. That's something our listeners may not have heard. Can you elaborate a little bit on what this means and how this differs perhaps from the first generation?
So the next-gen modules really aim at add innovation to the different processes that we do have. One of the first steps, for example, was the paperless doping control application that we just launched in 2021. And we have also launched the doping control form. So it would be actually improved processes with added security and easier to maintain applications because, as you said, anti-doping evolves very, very quickly. So on a yearly basis, the system needs to be updated. Workflows need to be improved in order to make sure that we're able to follow the rhythm of changes that is imposed on us. The next gen modules are, I would say, requirements, not even a nice to have at this stage.
Definitely. So you mentioned that you get feedback from the users and you're not able to necessarily do everything for everybody because there are limits to what the technology can do and kind of limits to how much time and resources WADA can be dedicating to the system. So how do you go about prioritizing or making those decisions about what to update and what to add to ADAMS?
All the ADAMS features need to be in accordance with the code and the standards. So the prioritization of the request is really made based on, yes, the WADA strategic objectives. So we do have a lot of communication between the IT and the executive or leadership of WADA, but it is all about finding the common denominator. So suggestions are always welcome. Please keep sending them through. We will be prioritizing them based on the impact on the overall community, the most value added to most users, I would say. We will also prioritize based on the impact on the system's performance, the legal and compliance aspect of it, as well as our budget and capacity. So we are doing the best we can, making sure that most of our users are satisfied and that the requirements actually meet the code and the standards requirements.
Absolutely. So thinking about the team at WADA who works on ADAMS, how many people comprise this team and who is involved in that decision-making process?
Within the decision-making, I would say that there are 6 of us. We do work very closely with the executive department. The strategy is defined by our executive, So based on the requirements that we do have, if these entail modification to the processes or the addition of a new module, we need to first make sure that they are aligned and get clearance from the executive. Then following that, you do have the evaluation of the capacity of the team as well. So yes, there are multiple actors from a lot of different departments that are involved in the decisions.
Oh, interesting. It's cool to kind of get a look behind the scenes because I think a lot of people, even the users of Atoms, sort of only see the finished product, what's in their hand, what they're using every day. So getting to hear about what happens behind the scenes is phenomenal. And you hinted at a couple of challenges or problems that you may encounter in creating Atoms and in changing it over time. What is, I guess, your biggest current challenge, Chaya, in managing Atoms?
I would say the prioritization is one. People are really growing eager, I would say, to see changes, which is totally understandable. We do cater to a lot of organizations and athletes. So we have recently put in place a communication plan to help us improve and provide more transparency as to how the decisions are taken, just as you're referring to, based on the communication between the IT department and the executive one. But balancing between technical and business needs is the biggest challenge that we have.
Definitely. And what are some of your goals, thinking big about the future of Atoms and what you'd like to see it be able to do or who it would be able to help?
I would see evolve into a more lightweight system, and that is a more modular and easy to update system, easy to evolve. Being able to provide new features, add innovation, adding intelligence into the system as well, using the data that we do have at hand in order to provide better value to the anti-doping community. One of our big projects for this year, 2022, has been to really reach out to the different actors, so different national anti-doping organizations or international federations, to see what is actually being done on the technological aspects of anti-doping, and why not reuse some of the parts that are already available.
Oh, interesting. So in terms of, I guess, feedback that you get from customers, is there something that keeps coming up again and again in terms of features or things that people would like to see?
Well, the application platform interface, the API is one, the one that connects the two systems together, is really something that people have been asking for a while. We've just answered also one of the big needs of the anti-doping community, which is the paperless system. DCO Central was also launched this year. And the next step would really be business intelligence, using the data to be more proactive.
Interesting. So in terms of proactively using this data, do you have an example or a case of where that would be valuable?
On statistics, WADA currently do provide yearly statistics. It is called the testing figures. The WADA testing figures is provided. And we would like to be able to format and make the data available to the anti-doping organizations so that they can actually recognize maybe trends and use that within their target testing anti-doping program.
Well, I know we mentioned that sometimes resources, time, people are limitations here. If we took away the barriers that you normally face, Chaya, and if you had all of the resources imaginable, is there a particular problem in anti-doping that you would want to solve most?
Yes, and I believe we just touched upon it. It will be the business intelligence. I would like for us to be based, sure enough, always in respect to the data privacy laws in place. We would like to be able to provide better business intelligence to our stakeholders, to be able to also provide more application APIs, application platform interfaces, to automatically upload form in the system. The system currently allows for pretty good coordination for test planning, test coordination, which means to avoid duplicate testing. If we could add to that maybe more data exchange, I would say that would be a pretty big chunk of the work that is ahead of us.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like you've got big plans for this Atom system. So is there anything else that you feel like our listeners should definitely know about Atoms that we haven't covered yet?
Well, I would invite the listeners to visit our user guide, which is at adams-help@wada-ama.org, or to reach out to us directly at adams@wada-ama.org. If they have any questions, we really are eager to hear more about the users directly. It is very good for us to have direct feedback because it improves our troubleshooting, and it is easier to deep dive into an actual issue with someone that you can really talk to. Constructive criticism is always welcome. So don't be shy, I would say, and shoot us an email so that we can discuss.
Fantastic. Well, listeners, definitely check out those resources. Get in touch with Chaya and the group there at WADA if you want to learn more about ADAMS or if you have suggestions. And Chaya, thank you so much for joining us on the show today to talk more about ADAMS and share your experiences.
Thanks a lot, Mary, for the opportunity. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to chat with you today, listeners. It's been great to have you here as well. And if you haven't had a chance yet, we would truly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform to share your experience with the show. And listeners, please note that the Anti-Doping Podcast features a wide variety of clean sport experts, and episodes may include statements and or viewpoints that do not necessarily reflect the views or values of the PCC. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Anti-Doping Podcast.